Well, in this lecture, I will talk about knowledge in the postmodern era. Most philosophers and theologians claim that we live in this new era known as postmodern. Yeah, so ironically, we don't live in modern world anymore. We're living in postmodern world. The term modernism can be regarded as European enlightenment from the 17th century to 19th century, whereas postmodernism as a philosophical movement started in the 20th century or in the mid of 20th century. Depends on how you view it. Modernism is mainly known for its scientific thinking and rationalism and empiricism. This postmodernism is summed up in the modernism is summed up one of the sort of the father of modern philosophy, right? René Descartes' famous maxim, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. By thinking and reasoning, humans can derive universal objective truth and knowledge. On the contrary, postmodernism, by and large, denies objective universal truth. And postmodernism tends to affirm cultural relativism. That is, knowledge and truth is relative to one's particular social community, in one's group. And truth and knowledge is different for different group and different people. In this lecture also, I will elaborate on the 5 main characteristics of postmodernism. First, postmodernism tends to underscore relativism and pluralism. Relativism and pluralism. Relativism teaches that there is no absolute truth. Instead, truth is socially, culturally conditioned. Insofar as it is different for each person, each historical period, and each society, and each group. Furthermore, pluralism teaches that there are many kinds or forms of truth. Each field of academic discipline has its own truth or form of knowledge. Like natural scientific truth is grounded on empirical data, whereas religious truths are usually grounded on their subjective religious experiences or morality, or their religious scriptures. You can even talk about like people like Jonathan Edwards and some of the people like the heart of religion is more of beauty and aesthetics or emotion, affection. So there are different kinds and forms of truth. The second main characteristic of postmodernism is holism. Now, be careful. Sometimes you're going to see the spelling WHOLISM, or it spells HOLISM. Many students have asked me the difference between holism with the WH or holism with just HOLISM without WHOLISM, right? Because they have been seeing different spellings. In general, scholars of sociology and psychology and education prefer the spelling of WHOLISM, but some other academic disciplines, right? They use holism, spelling HOLISM. I use holism, WH, as the opposite of reductionism, which diminishes the scope of reality by only talking about some parts of it. Whereas holism with HOLISM is opposite of analysis, which divides the whole into smaller parts. That's how you analyze it, right? So if you want to study, the person, Dr. K.D. Yoon, then let's look at his head by analyzing into smaller pieces. That's what analyzing means, right? Look at the smaller parts and the details, so that we could really get into details. Still, both of them are served as the synonym, many ways. Yeah, some people, they spell, but they're synonyms. So, but I'm using different spelling, with different nuances. The third, main characteristics of postmodernism is this one. That is, rejection of representation, or reflection theory of knowledge. Our human mind and language do not reflect the reality that is out there, that is objective, and that is actual and real. In other words, there is a huge unbridgeable gap between the primary properties, the real properties of the objects, and then the secondary properties, human perceptions of that external objects, like sort of pain. When somebody pinch me, like I feel the pain. That has to do with my reaction to the objective properties. Immanuel Kant, another big name in modern philosophy, used the term, two different words in describing this matter. Like he calls that in German Ding an sich, and then that means thing in itself, and then thing for me, and Ding für mich. So thing in itself means the meaning out there, and thing for me is the way it appears to me through my five senses. So that's thing for me through my five senses, or how I feel pain and brightness. That is more of my subjective reading of it. And thing in itself is the quality of things out there. Let's say even without you, what kind of properties this external object have. So that is thing in itself, without me, without my perspective, without my five senses, my perceptions. So that is thing in itself, and thing for me is the way it appears to me. Like brightness can cause me pain too, right? That pain that I feel, the way I perceive the thing out there with my five senses, that is more of thing for me, the way it appears to me. Human mind has only access to thing for me, as it appears to me. But we never have access to thing in itself. So in this regard, humans can only know appearances, right? But not the real ontological properties of external object out there. So in the same way, postmodern people highlight the gap, unbridgeable gap between language and reality. In other words, the big unbridgeable gap between language and reality, and meaning and being, meaning and reality. So the word, if you want to know more about being, we call that a study of ontology, right? And so if you want to know more about it, probably, I'm also teaching like history of philosophy and introduction to philosophy. We talk about ontology and metaphysics and that kind of thing. So, in our plain language, humans do not, so what does it mean? To make it really simplistic, even almost overly simplistic, humans do not know the real thing. We only know the appearances of a thing. the way it appears to me through my five senses. So, what if somebody has sixth sense? Then they will likely see more things about the object out there. Okay. Fourth main characteristics of postmodern understanding of knowledge is this. Knowledge is not neutral, objective. Don't forget that. Knowledge is not neutral and objective insofar as it is a product of the use of power. The most famous postmodern, the flamboyant philosopher, thinker is Michel Foucault, right? He teaches there's a very close connection between knowledge and power. Power brings forth knowledge. Power and knowledge affects each other. Michel Foucault points out three fundamental mistakes of the Western culture, right? For the last 3 centuries. Number one, there is a body of objective knowledge that needs to be discovered. So he's denying there's no objective knowledge to be discovered. Number two, Western society believe that they more or less possess this neutral knowledge that is not class biased. In a Western society, in the modern world, trying to find neutral knowledge that is good for everybody. Basically saying there's no such thing as neutral knowledge good for everybody. Number three, all human kind, regardless of one's social class and gender, will receive benefits from this pursuit of knowledge. No, he's saying not everybody will receive the benefits. Usually the benefits goes to the dominant class, the people with the most power. That's why he's connecting knowledge with power. I mean, he goes a lot further than that. Actually, language itself is like usually the universal global language. Yeah, right. Right now, he's going to even argue against that. Even the choice of language. What language do we use in order to have a sort of global conversation, right? And usually the language that we use is the language of the dominant countries. Against this 3-century-long Western assumption, Michel Foucault, the most best-known postmodern thinker, avers that knowledge is inescapably connected to power due to its tie to discourse. Regarding this correlation between power and discourse, in Michel Foucault's view, Sheldon Wolin writes, so I'm quoting, every discourse embodies a power drive, meaning every story, and every arrangement is repressive. By and large, most postmodernists teach that each language and knowledge come with some cultural biases and ethnocentrism, and they tend to promote ethos of the dominant group. The fifth main characteristics of postmodernism is, you guys heard that so many times, even in English class, right? What else? Deconstruction theory. Deconstruction reveals that a word or text possesses many or alternative meanings. Like a living organism, meaning of a word can experience, undergo changes and growth. In this sense, each word has no one definitive meaning. When a message, when a sentence is written, it is released from the hands of the author, from the control of the author. Furthermore, the person who interprets the text also brings meanings to the text, sort of subjective, our own interpreter's meaning to the text. So, in other words, when we say black, when you say white, we bring some sort of connotation and denotations to it. So let me sort of dig into that concept further. Let me provide an example of deconstruction in the face of the well-known statement of the James Cone, right? He has been many years ago. One of the leading voice of African American, black theology. He says in his book, he wrote a book on black theology, right? So God is black. What does it mean? You know what I'm saying? God is black. What does it mean? This statement has so many meanings. A classic example of deconstruction, right? It has multiple meanings and interpretations. From the black theology, James Cone's black theology perspective, it implies that God is on the side of the black, on the side of the poor and oppressed. So black symbolizes poor, oppressed, and marginalized. That's what he meant. God is black. God is empathetic towards the poor and oppressed and marginalized of groups of people in this world. Like based on Luke chapter 4 verse 18, right? Sprays upon me for the oppressed and the gospel, and I'm preaching the gospel, to liberate those people. In a sense, that was a black liberation perspective, interpretation. So that's what I mean. God is black. So God is empathetic towards the poor, oppressed, and marginalized. He meant that way, mainly. But also the black represents the poor and oppressed. Another meaning for that, word black refers to African Americans, right? You don't say like, well, he or she is African American. We call them like sort of a really simplistic term like, black and white person, that kind of language. Third, the word, sometimes it goes a little bit deeper further, and so black signifies the opposite of good. So sometimes for some people, the blacks, symbolize evil and dark. And if you look at the James Cone's book, you will get a lot of idea. Lastly, this word is also, some people might say that, the remnant of the colonial past in Europe. So in Europe, right, there is in the past, like, I'm talking about like 19th, 18th century, and there were white people and there were also black people. And if you're European, English, and in that sense, you're white. But if you are non-white, like Indians, even Asians, right, categorized into under the umbrella black. So the word black has so many meanings. I'm just trying to provide sort of a deconstruction understanding of meaning and supporting Jacques Derrida's deconstruction theory. So Jacques Derrida, right, passed away 2004. Human language, one of the sort of the biggest name in this construction, right, theory is, Jacques Derrida. Human language remains self-referential insofar as it only has signifier. What is signifier? Well, if it can, go back to dictionary, any dictionary, Webster's dictionary, Oxford dictionary, you type the word signifier. It has so many descriptions about it, right? That's a signifier. So, like when you look at the word chair, like it has 4 legs, and so it describes that. We call that it has 4 legs. It's a signifier. The words are words, but they are not the real chair. Now you got that right. So we have signifiers in the dictionary, but we don't have a signified object like the real chair. that you and I can sit on. So they are highlighting the once again unbridgeable gap between signifier and signified, and some people say we only have a signifiers in meanings. We don't really know the signified. So in a sense, like Jacques Derrida and then also Richard Rorty, one of the biggest name in American postmodern pragmatic tradition. Both Derrida and Richard Rorty, reject the actual essence or reality of being. In other words, humans, we live in the world of meanings, not in the world of realities. One step further, since a word is entrenched in the sort of constantly changing contexts, its meaning can never be fixed. There's no once and for all meaning. There's no once and for all meaning. Hence, meaning undergoes changes over time and places. And so that is, in a nutshell, of postmodernism. And then in my next lecture, and then I'm going to talk something about how should conservative, it can mean evangelical, Pentecostal, how should we respond to this postmodernism of our culture today? And how can we keep that universal faith, transcendental faith in light of all this postmodern context, our world today? So it's going to be my next lecture. All right, that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Thanks.